Hello, JJFBbennett here. Just overviewing another drawing, and you'll hear dogs and tractors outside as they're planting trees on my nature strip. What I want to talk about is a drawing basically about a figure or a fictional character called Celeste. This is all about trying to develop a character that I can use in an animation type or anime or cartoon like production. However, there is no starting point and there's no ending point. This is largely for me and my ideas develop off them. No timeline of when this will be done. I don't seek any other thing but the enjoyment of putting a focus into some of my art and focus having a bit of a story or an evolving story. I have always been interested in how data fabricates something out of nothing, out of randomness. You get a pattern, how you can use that pattern to develop something. But over the time, there may be something interesting that happens, but perhaps may not. I have a lot of bubble thoughts, and these thoughts come and go, work full time. So my job, I have a passion about education, and that's my primary passion. This is a kind of secondary passion. However, I do enjoy doing this, and I believe that somebody will enjoy watching this. If not, such is life. Okay, Celeste is a character. What I'm trying to do is get a character that looks into the ocean. I know what I want. It's up in the left-hand corner. It's the drawing in conclusion, and it's a figure or a large head looking out through what is a stormy seascape. It's quite an unusual approach to have the idea for this kind of sketching, for me anyway, through this kind of sketching to establish where I want to go in and how to place it. In the top right hand corner, there's the landscapes or the seascapes that Celeste will be viewing. And it's an animation. I put on very slowly just to correspond with the drawing I'm doing. And gradually, over time, this character will be looking out at the sea, scanning the sea, and finding something, a mysterious object or something to that extent. It is a dreamscape as well. She's dreaming this, comes into this dream, not regularly, but in a pattern that have some kind of repetition over a period of time, something that she knows. Once she enters, she knows it, and as she enters it, she starts feeling that she has some kind of control in it. But the question obviously is, does she control it, or does this dream control her? So the seascape is part of her dreaming, and she's within the dreaming. So she's visualizing something of internal that's within her, and she's within the dream. And she's planted to the shore, and the video will basically demonstrate her scanning horizon, never quite leaving the shore. So she's like Blake with one ankle strapped to the earth, and the body and the fingers and the mind is trying to be heavenly, or that's basically the name. And sketching is fairly rough, no kind of finesse in here, and eventually I'll probably take it into something like Inkscape, and it'll become more cartoon-like, and then eventually into GIMP for some kind of filtering or some effects that will give it a little bit more of an edge rather than flat 2D. This is the first kind of approach to it. It's been in my head for a week or so, and the poem that associates with it is developing as I'm doing this and drawing. So the media in itself is a combination of trying to get multiple approaches to something that may eventually be one product, but in the end it probably won't have anything to do with any one product. It'll be a mishmash or a collage of all of them. But to make sense of it, you may need to reflect on them all. And to me, this is just as well making sense of what I'm reading at this point in time. where my art is taking my imagination, where my concentration on philosophies are, especially in learning, perceptions of what reality is, perceptions of what dreams mean to reality, separation of concepts that you can push aside for one side of your life, and then they come and immerse themselves in other aspect of your life. All the different aspects that make people a very complex being, I suppose. Now the drawing is starting to take some kind of shape, and you can see that it's a still profile. It's not luscious or like any kind of form of beauty, like say what Botticelli would do, who I very much admire. But it has some kind of sensibility in the mysticism of the person and the environment that they operate in or they live in. And obviously this being a dream, and as the story probably proceeds, is the capacity of when you daydream, you're deeply involved in your daydream. You separate what your function is at the time, whether it's driving a car or washing the dishes or walking along a track. The automation of how you operate deep within your dream, as you emerge out of that dream, having made mistakes, whether you were carrying clothes up to your bedroom and actually you put them in the laundry, or you took them to the bathroom, or washing plates and you forgot to do a half a dozen, or if you're driving through an intersection, after you get through that, you haven't really concentrated on that section, but you made it through safely without any issue whatsoever. To a certain degree, the drawing is developing itself in the same manner. Not everything that is in this drawing is predicted. It's got a semblance of where it's going to go, and obviously as a draft, I suppose it will keep a platform for future. And if I do take it into Inkscape, we'll have a stronger element of clean line and clean colour. In the background, at the top right-hand corner, you can see the seascape is starting to change, the colours starting to come through. Eventually, it'll be fairly sunlight. So the drawing is the emergence of the dream as dawn is occurring. And so it's got some time, it's got some place, it's got some endeavour to an awakening of self. But I don't intend it to be an awakening. I almost want it to be an awakening of a threat, or an awakening of okay, this is part of my dealing in life, and I can easily disregard it, or I can take some ownership or some charge with what it is to improve that situation, rather than pointing fingers and relying on others to make those decisions for me. Now, eventually, as Celeste becomes a actual identity, there'll be things that she does, and I will define her age and what her interests are, and she will gain a plot, but at this point in time, she's firmly stuck in her own dreams. And the emergence out of the dream into a realization of some kind of confusion. So there's a dilemma that will occur for the character, if I can actually maintain concentration in this over the next few weeks. How I'm drawing this is pen on paper, and you can see it's quite rudimentary type of drawing. And it's scribbly and it's rough, and I'm trying to work around a camera, and so I'm not really trying to get the quality of this is a highly accomplished drawing. What I'm trying to get at is to strengthen the drawing of itself, that this is taking character into another level of consciousness. The character is operating in the background, and I'm reading books, and I read newspapers and watch the news, and at the moment there's the issues of Trump and issues of Australian politics and the transition of what is corruption and what is normal play and fantasy movies and all that kind of stuff. It's all the emergence of not one kind of thought, but a backbone of collection of what you want to hear and how it merges with other things. So obviously I do have an interest in movies and can watch a movie and we know that movies have influenced consciousness of many societies, especially American movies in the American market, and Australia has a strong heritage in watching productions from UK and their persona that comes through those movies, the morals and the sequences of thought that happen. So there will be some restrictions of what my capacity of being able to write a story. I have no intentions of it being on the same level as a professional writer. It's more of an experiential approach to writing rather than actual sit down. I'm disciplining myself to writing a story. It'll remain eclectic. It will be all over the place. It will, at one stage, maybe get locked into points of detail, and then other times it will flow with no real understanding of how a form of one point gets to another point. So there'll be crevices and distractions. And to a certain extent, there'll be other things that I've done in the past that will seep into this story. Can't and I won't have the time to be able to, once again, edit it to the extent of having clarity as for the viewer to go, hey, I understand that, or hey, that was really enjoyable. I very much like this type of stuff, and this will have nothing it'll be as meandering as what I am saying at the moment, and as meandering as the drawing that you're seeing at this point of time. Now the character has a story in the background, and in the top middle corner, it'll have a poem that's associated with it. Now, obviously this poem could be used in the real production of it, or it may actually just sit in with this video in itself and not leave this. Once again, it'll be a mash in and a mash out. I'm mashing my own artwork to create something, or a continuum, or a semblance of continuum. At points of time, these drawings may only be for my own value and to connections of trying to figure out where is this all going as a universal question for myself, as a part of society, and as confused as anybody else is with where all this is going. There's no religious manifesto, although it will have some semblance to my interests in Hindu and my interests in Buddhism. However, it won't have any real understanding of those spiritualisms or religions, because I haven't really no experiential knowledge of those religions. My heritage has been brought up in a Christian society where I went to a Christian school for a period of time, and my parents were what you could call devout Christians. So that will obviously be within where this is going, but it's not an intention of writing a story based on those themes. However, I do believe that even Australia's society, even though it fundamentally isn't in the rigours of attending church, or there is a rigour of sending most of a good percentage of our students to Christian private schools to gain that, what I would say, tacit knowledge that sits in the background and it forms the tacit decisions that people make in life, not really knowing why they're making those decisions, but knowing that it feels good and is part of your underlying belief of what is, or what underlying value, that those deep values that are very hard to get to and very hard to explain. Much the same as a dream, very hard to explain, but having impact, waking up and saying, hey, I just had a weird dream. Don't actually go in, hey, my values are quite weird, but the goodness that sits in there probably never disputed. Even if there's damage, even if it's reckless, even if it causes other people grief, we tend to dispose of those as, hey, I don't think about that in that depth. It's in there, it's common sense, it's what occurs, it's like a dreamlike state. Then, if the situation occurs, and usually perhaps in a crisis, it's when the values are dreamlike. Why was I thinking of that? Where did I get that from? Why am I doing it this way? Why have I held this belief for 20 years and so on? Collective is very strong in what we do and how we think, and it's not easily explained, it's not easily drawn upon. There's nothing bad in it, it's part of humanity. It's something that we don't actually consider or put so much price on. Delving into what is a collective and creative experience is generally assumed in, hey, we answer to the collective understanding of what is good, collective understanding of what is bad, whether it's in aesthetics or in moral sense. When we look out into a landscape, there are things that we may never see. All in our own daydream, never ever trying to find out what is it that we're not seeing in that landscape. Just accepting it as we are prepared to accept it, whether it can be as dark and horrible as this drawing, or it can be light and beautiful, and you can taste, you can sense everything that's occurring at that point of time. Our senses tend to assume what we're feeling, and our senses are so strong that what is actually we're seeing is determined by what we think we are seeing. Never to question those thoughts. And this is where the dilemma that I'm putting in this story is, what are the questions that Celeste is seeing and how all these things pan out? One thing I should say is that there's some kind of liking to this to be cross over into some kind of fantasy, I suppose, and some kind of fiction or science fiction type of story. And once again, the plots and the complicated personalities will never quite be developed, but they will exist as they emerge and as they disappear, and perhaps as they will tell their own story, or I'll learn from them and never quite controlling them, as I'm never quite controlling this drawing. It's quite unusual, isn't it, that we have sunsets every night, we have sunrises every morning. We marvel at each time we see it, or each beautiful thing that we see, but we never quite endeavour ourselves to sit, take our time to question, and this mass production time that we're leaving. Perhaps we will have some time to do that. Perhaps all these burdens that we've had in the past, all these challenges we've had in the past of being able to survive, and may be alleviated. We may be able to question ourselves, consciousness, and what we are in this being, in this part of the world, in this thing that we are, how we do things. Right, thanks once again for listening to my story. I hope that you enjoy what is about to occur, what this has occurred in, when it's going to occur, and how it may occur. I'll leave it to you. Thank you.